and clean. The unborn grass lies waiting for its coat to turn to green.
I'm Dan Ratiner from Dan's Papers, and before I go any further, though, I wanted to thank our sponsors. Barnes & Noble, who became very involved in this project last year, has provided us major funding. And also, we are sponsored by Hampton Jitney, Ben Krapinski, Southampton Inn, Bridgehampton National Bank, Audi of Southampton, Porsche of Southampton, BMW of Southampton, Mini of Southampton, and the cable network Destination America. Our keynote speaker is E.L. Doctorow. He's written several major works of literature, Billy Bathgate, Loon Lake, Ragtime, World's Fair. He's won the National Book Award, the Penn Saul Bellow Award, the National Book Critics Circle Award, and he's just a great, great writer. I'd like to invite him to come out now. Mr. Doctorow, if you're there.
Good evening. As I've been thinking about this evening, it occurs to me that Americans love contests. We are a contest-loving people. Perhaps because a contest is emblematic of a merit-based, classless society, which is what we all wish we purely had. Of all our contests, those having to do with language are, of course, the most interesting. And here this summer on the South Fork, we have one, happily enough, for what some people, but not Dan Ratiner, call creative nonfiction. And I have one final thought, that there may be only a winner or two or three announced this evening, but if you tried, if you essayed, perhaps goaded on by the thought of a contest to get you doing something that you'd always thought about, but had never summed up the resolve to try, then you are the winner as well, because you did it, and you may now feel brave enough to keep doing it while on the lookout for another contest. Or even better, you may not need another contest to make yourself, like Montaigne, the matter of your book. In any event, get busy. Thank you.
Three of the judges are up here, and they're going to be our presenters, and I'm going to get to the first one in a minute. They are, the three who are here are Marty Shepard, who has a book company. He's a book publisher. Joan Baum, who's a book reviewer. Chris Knopf, who you may have heard of as a mystery writer. Jim Marquardt is also up here. He's not coming out to judge. He's our showrunner for the night. Make sure everybody shows up and walks out when they're supposed to, drunk or sober. Andrew Botsford, who I know couldn't be here, and Bonnie Grice. And we were proud to have them all. I had to urge some of them on. Some of them were very prompt. It's the usual story. It's just like school, you know. And so now we're going to award the first of the three prizes. And this one is the presenter is going to be Joan Baum. She writes book reviews, has written book reviews for Newsday, for the NPR station, WELI, for Dan's Papers, and several other publications. And I'd like to invite her out, and she will then proceed from there.
This has been a very tough year for the prizes, particularly because, as Dan said, we had so many entries that came in at the last minute. But I feel pleased that I think all of the judges abided by the rules to give scores from 1 to 5, no fractions, no decimal points. Last year we took them out to 2 or 3 places. And so, without further ado, the runner-up for Dan's Papers Literary Prize 2013 is Eve Elliott. And the name of the essay is Why the East End is an Excellent Place to Die. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And here are your big bucks.
I did not know I would be asked to be creatively non-fictional when I came up here, or if I even was coming up here. And I'm really quite surprised to be here because I actually did submit 2 entries. And this was not the one that I thought would have won the prize. What occasioned my entry was that my darling husband of 30 years, who had been healthy until he was 70, became ill last spring, and in 51 weeks went from a very healthy person to his deathbed and stopped eating and drinking voluntarily in order to do that. He was a person with extremely high standards, which I think the judges also must have, to have chosen this entry, since this is not an appealing topic.
This is for you. And this is a full-color Nook, courtesy Barnes & Noble. We hope it encourages you to keep on entering. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I want to introduce Jim Marquardt. He is our second presenter. He is a columnist for the Sag Harbor Express. He is a retired advertising executive where he worked for 23 years as the CEO of a large company. And I'd like to invite him out, and he'll award the second prize. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. It's a real honor to be here and participating in this great event. I'm presenting the runner-up, second runner-up of Dan'sPapers Literary Prize 2013. And the prize goes to Joe Carson, and the name of his piece is The Naked Kingdom. Joe?
Thank you so much. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. A friend of mine encouraged me to enter this contest, and you know, that's exactly what he said. He said, "You're from here and you write, so get on with it." And I was one of the people that made it into the deadline by minutes. And it's wonderful to see this, and it's great that, you know, to Dan Ratiner for putting this together, and to the judges, you know, for putting in their effort to really participate and find, you know, the essay that they loved. It just goes to show that there is a foundation for support for the arts and letters out here. And to Len Riggio, and also to Barnes & Noble and all the sponsors and supporters, it's really a fantastic thing, so thank you.
At this point, I want to bring out the next presenter who will be presenting for our first prize. To make that award is Martin Shepard. Martin, about 20 years ago, co-founded with his wife Judy Permanent Press, which is one of the, I think, the 2 or 3 greatest small publishing houses in the United States. We're lucky to have them here in Sag Harbor, and he's also been a long-time friend of mine. Martin, would you come out?
Do I need this? Yes. I do. First prize is for Susan Duff for Moving Through Water. Maybe you too would like to say a little bit about what inspired this.
Thank you. I just feel full of gratitude to Dan'sPapers and Dan Ratiner, and to my husband, who's the subject matter of this particular piece, and our daughter Polly, who's a writing professor and helped me so much with my writing, and to my writing group, who supported me and given me lots of love. Thank you.
I'm going to introduce Peter Lindstrom, who will read the winning entry. Peter Lindstrom.
Good evening. We're going to hear Moving Through Water by Susan Duff. On New Year's Eve, Paul and I had dinner with friends at our house in Springs. We danced a Motown until well after midnight, and the next morning we drove to the ocean for the annual polar plunge. The starting gun sounded, and Paul raced into the choppy breakers with the others. I lost sight of him when the whooping mass splashed back to shore. Wandering into the wet, shivering mob, I found him quickly. He's taller than most men and has a distinctive gait, an old anti-war wound, he'd joke when someone asked him about his arthritic limp. 4 days later, Paul had surgery on his failing hips. His surgeon had promised he would walk without pain, his limp gone within weeks. By early spring, he'd been riding a bike to the beach. 2 months later, in March, Paul couldn't stand or walk without crutches. A rare complication of the surgery had locked his hip joints into a painful, crippling mass. He'd have to wait at least a year, maybe more, the surgeon said, before they could fix it. One day at noon, we head out to Louse Point for a swim, our first bay sortie of the season. Paul hopes the salt water will buoy his fused hips and failing legs. I'm secretly pessimistic, hoping I'm wrong. We approach the water's edge and wade in holding hands. When we reach deeper water, he lets go and dives in, swimming toward the boat moorings in Accabonac Harbor. He swims more slowly than he did last year, but his hips and his legs are high in the water. I whisper, "Thanks," to the salty bay as I watch him swim away, and then I put on my fins and catch up, and we swim in tandem, his athletic freestyle and my lazy backstroke. In June, Polly and Gary come for a visit. At noon on Sunday, the skies are still uncertain, and we head for Louse Point anyhow. Our daughter jogs, her boyfriend bikes, and Paul and I drive. The younger two sit on the beach while we plunge into the cold bay, immersing ourselves in the destructive element, as Paul likes to say. Paul and I are impatient. Time is moving too slowly. We're only halfway to next winter when they said his hips could be fixed. The damp heat lifts, and a sunlit parade of showy summer days marches in with fanfare. Our house gets crowded and lively with visitors. Our life seems so normal, I almost forgot that it isn't. Paul and I swim together twice a day now. Last summer, I liked to look up at the herring sky and the white-bellied gulls on our Louse Point swims, but now I watch Paul's face as he comes up for air with every other stroke. He's smiling again. After our swim, I still take his hand as we wade on the beach. He doesn't need it now, but I like the habit. On a Friday in July, the surgeon's nurse calls Paul from Manhattan with this month's test results. I listen in, hopeful, on the other extension. "Your progress is amazing," Nadia says to Paul. "You could be good to go sooner than we predicted. Maybe by October. You must be doing something right." My eyes sting, but I start to grin. "Swimming," I say softly, "just swimming. Twice a day in 2 magical bays." The end.
Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to invite Carolyn Doctorow out to play one more song, and then this program will be over, and we will see you again at this time in 2014. Thank you.
It makes me tenderly in my sleeping bag, roll up and stash behind your couch. Knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds, the ink stains that have dried upon some line. They keep you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory. They keep you ever gentle on